This week, changes are made to the sovereignty map as new claims are made in old Legacy and Imperium regions. A few more Keepstars are destroyed in Delve and Querious, and one Keepstar has an unusual demise in Tenerifis. 9 Titans and 30 Supers are involved in the smuggling ring, and in another war, 8 Titans are killed in a 1 trillion ISK battle on a Lowsec Keepstar grid. Hello pop people, I am Frost, and this is your EVE Online War Update. Welcome back. So as you have seen from the thumbnail with the title of New Flags Being Planted, essentially what we're seeing is the old legacy regions in the south, as well as Fountain, which used to belong primarily to the Imperium. We're seeing new claims being made on sovereignty in those areas, and not all of it is going smoothly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to jump up into my box, as always. There we go, in my box. And we are going to go to our .land. Thank you to Walari. And as usual, let me just grab my pen and do my doodle, and these are the areas that we're kind of covering. We're actually going to cover Deterid this week. We've got a bit of news. Still no OMIST, I'm afraid. No one cares about Paragon Solar Period Basis at the moment, so there you go. Right, so these are the areas that we're going to cover, and we're going to go from right to left. So let's start with Deterid. Now, the reason I'm bringing up Deterid is you will see down here in the southwest corner of the map that there's some systems here, around here, that have been reinforced during the week. And I thought, oh, okay, is XIX iHubs being reinforced? But actually that's not the case. What it is if I go to the TCU map, you will see that these are all owned by TESS. Now, if you remember last week, I talked about a Goonswarm SIG group, that's a special interest group, that were in Tenerifis, and they were removing all the vindictive TCUs and iHubs from Tenerifis. Now, apparently some of the members in this SIG group have a real thing for trying to take out anything that is related to test, and so they found these TCUs up there, and that is what is going on here, is that Goonswarm, the SIG group of Goonswarm, have decided that they want to get rid of all these TCUs, even though probably test will never go up here ever again in the foreseeable future. It's just a good sort of clean-up exercise, I assume. So there you go. So that's what's going on with Deterid. I'm going to change back to my iHubs before I forget. And then we are going to go to, where should we go to next? Tenerifis. Okay, so as I mentioned just a minute ago, all of these used to be owned by Vindictive, and that Goonswarm SIG group, I think that one as well, have got rid of all of these. So there you go. So these are now all gone. And Legacy has been pretty much completely cleared out of this region. Now, the other thing that you will notice is that Siberian Squad iHubs are now starting to be refed and removed. So you can see there's already a few here, a couple of them that have been removed. And as I understand, this is being done by Patriots. Now, Patriots are part of Fire Coalition. I don't actually know if Fire Coalition are approving of this, whether they've been sanctioned to do this. As I've mentioned before, that this whole area of Immensea, this side here, to the left of the blue line, is actually very, very difficult to defend from Innsmother and Deterid and Wicked Creek, which is Fire Coalition territory. So I'm quite surprised that this has happened. And like I said, I don't know if it's actually been sanctioned. I couldn't get a confirmation of that from Fire. But there you go. So it does look like the Patriots may be moving into this area. But we will see probably next week when we see iHubs popping up to see if they're going to replace these. Now, something did happen that was quite the incident, and it happened here in YF-P4X. Now, YF-P4X used to be the staging system of Legion of Death when they lived in Tenerifis a year or two ago. And so there was still a Keepstar there. And at the time, Siberian Squad were part of Fire Coalition, and there was a handover of that Keepstar to Siberian Squad. Now, as you know, Siberian Squad have now become part of the Imperium, or have allied with the Imperium. I can't remember which it is. But either way, they're on the side of the Imperium now. But they still had this Keepstar here. So they thought, you know what, we're going to come back and we're going to unanchor this Keepstar. But things were afoot because Pandemic Horde got wind of this, and Pandemic Horde sent over some ships to try and capture this unanchoring Keepstar. Now, this is what happened. So this is the battle report. And as you can see, there's a bunch of dreads on the left here, and there's a bunch of dreads on the right, and there's a Fenrir, which is a freighter, and you can see there's 156 billion lost. Now, what happened is essentially, as I understand, Pandemic Horde dropped some revs and some Naglafars and a Moros and a Phoenix. So a nice little range of dreads there at 0 on the Keepstar. And then Siberian Squad were unable to warp their freighter in to pick it up. So then Horde dropped their freighter in, and Dread Bomb came in and dropped a whole bunch of dreads and also a whole Loki fleet. And so, as a consequence of this, the Loki fleet were able to pin down this Fenrir. Now, this Fenrir had the Keepstar in it, and you'll see from my little doodle here, there we go, the Keepstar is right there. So the Keepstar was in the freighter, and what happened, as you can see from the top damage up here, is that Pandemic Horde realized they would not be able to extract the freighter, and so they shot the freighter, whilst Deepwater Hooligans had it pinned down. But the Keepstar dropped, and so they then killed the wreck. So as a consequence of this, 154 billion-isk Keepstar died in a wreck of a freighter in Tenerifis to an AWACS. So there you go. So a pretty unusual death, and it was worth mentioning. So that is another Keepstar down through an unusual demise. So there we go. So that was basically what's been happening in Tenerifis. The other thing I want to mention as well is, I talked about this last week, is that there's still quite a lot of legacy Keepstars in all of these old regions. So what I'm doing, so as I go through the regions, I'm going to mention as well how many Keepstars are left. So in Tenerifis, there's 2 test Keepstars currently still in Tenerifis. So it's going to be interesting to see if these get unanchored in the way that Siberian Squad did it, and maybe it won't work or it will work, or whether they will keep them there and try and use them for future use and hope they don't get shot at. So we're going to find out about that, I think, as time goes on. All right, so let's leave Tenerifis now. It's been quite a busy week for Tenerifis, and we're going to go on to Immensea. So in Immensea, what we're seeing here is I was talking about SOV. Now, what's happened is that Wombat were originally, as you can see, I think they were kind of in this original region here. My pen's gone really thick again, so let me adjust that quickly. Let me change that back. There we go, make sure I'm on my pen. And then they kind of expanded, I think, into this whole area up here. And as you can see now, they have now lost that territory. And the reason why is Fire Coalition, and I spoke to someone in Fire, and they said that they didn't mind Combat Wombat having kind of a constellation, but they started kind of getting a little bit kind of hungry in this whole area. And obviously, as you can see down here, we've got, let me clear this, we have a link into Deterid, we've got a link into Tenerifis, and all of that is kind of bordering onto Fire territory. And so Fire Coalition weren't happy about it, and they started reffing all the SOV and fighting over the SOV in Immensea. Now, I have one battle report which I'm going to bring up here, which is interesting for 2 reasons. One was that it was quite a big loss to Fire Coalition. You can see 21 billion there versus 2 billion on this side. The interesting thing is that what we have is we have Dread Bomb. So Dread Bomb have decided to get involved in this fight. Now, Dread Bomb had a bit of a clash with Fire Coalition about a month and a half ago in Wicked Creek, when they reinforced an iHub and actually flipped a iHub with Volta in a Keepstar system that belonged to Legion of Death. Now, Legion of Death and Fire were able to take it back, but there is already history here of Dread Bomb kind of being quite aggressive towards Legion of Death. So it does look like Dread Bomb are going to be assisting Combat Wombat maybe more in the future. We may be seeing more conflicts here. Now, what I'm going to talk about quickly is these losses. How did these losses occur? And this is just kind of an interesting little fact here. That actually both sides brought nightmares, but the difference was that Dread Bomb had more nightmares, which is always a help. But the main thing is that Dread Bomb brought Logi Lokis. Now, these are afterburner fit Lokis with a very small SIG, but they can keep up with the nightmares, which is really important. Whilst, on the other hand, the Legion of Death brought nightmares, but they brought these guys. Bazzies, and my pen's gone thick again. And these Bazzies are micro warp drive, and as you can see, that means basically Bloom's their SIG, and their Bazzies got insta-blapped. I think only one managed to get reps on it, all the others got pretty much insta-blapped. So whilst we're just talking, I'm just going to set my pen again. There we go. And so that is kind of one of the reasons why these lost basically Legion of Death ended up losing pretty much all of their Nightmare fleet, is they lost all their Logi, they got insta-blapped, they weren't able to kill off the Logi of the Logi Lokis, and they were outnumbered in Nightmares, and so they are unable to extract by the looks of it as well. I assume there was some Sabres in here somewhere, some Dictors. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of Dictors down here on the side. Oh, I recognise one of those names. And so yeah, they basically got them bubbled, and that was the end of that. Although it looks like Valkyrie managed to get out with their Serbs. Okay, so there you go. So that was kind of what's been going on in Immensea, is that there's been some fighting over SOV, and Dread Bomber getting involved with Combat Wombat, Dread Bomb being part of Rekking Crew, Combat Wombat being a completely indie alliance, and they're going up against Fire Coalition. Then talked about Keepstars. We still have a Vindictive Keepstar here. I think if I remember correctly, somewhere up in this constellation up here. Now my pen's gone really thin. It's going to be the day of the pen, clearly. There we go. Let me just doodle that again. There we go. So in this area, and there is also a Test Keepstar and a Vindictive Satio still left. So I'm only talking about extra large structures here. Pretty much all Fortizars, Asbels have been pretty much cleared out of all of these regions. So we're really just focusing on kind of the Keepstars and the Satios. All right, so let's move on to Impasse very quickly. All I have to really say about Impasse, as you remember last week, I was talking to this Happy Families now. This is Red Menace Coalition, so you have Red Alliance, who are sided with the Imperium. They're allies of the Imperium, they're not part of the Imperium. They have their own coalition, which is made of Wrong, Sorry, and Midas 22. And they're doing Happy Families and Impasse, keeping themselves quite happy. There are 2 Keepstars still left. I think there's more than that, actually. No, there's 4 Keepstars that are still Legacy Keepstars here. There's actually two Brave ones, which are in the Brave space. I think one's up in the top and one's in the southwest in PZMA. And then we have one in Midas 22 territory and one in Sorry territory. Now, I would be very surprised if those Keepstars are not unanchored very soon, or they're not attacked. Red do have supercapitals and capitals available to them, and they've made it very clear that this is now their region, and I would assume they want to see these Keepstars gone as soon as possible. All right, so there you go, quick one with Impasse, and then we're going to move on to Feythabolis, because with Feythabolis we've still got a story. So the 2 stories here, the first one is Bastion still working on removing all the old iHubs from Test, and they can see they're starting to place their own iHubs in here as well, removing the Brave ones as well. We talked about this whole area being within jump range of TR07, which is kind of why they're kind of focusing on this whole area, and Invictus has kind of been left out down in the south because they're currently out of jump range until the Bastion or Deepwater Hooligans stage closer. But the big story here this week is that IGC, which is Invidia Gloria Comes, originally only had this constellation up here, and I think they had this one here. And in the last week, they have taken 24 new systems. So they have expanded into the old, already replaced territory and have taken this over. And so yeah, they've gone through a big expansion program this week. In case you didn't remember, Invidia Glory Comes used to be a renter alliance for Legacy Coalition. When Legacy bugged out of the area, they kind of left IGC behind. IGC decided to side with Deepwater Hooligans, who were actually tracking a lot of structures in AARP space at the time. And we just still don't know whether they're kind of blue to the Imperium or not, but they're clearly being left to their own devices, and I'm sure the Imperium are quite happy that they're taking over Feythabolis for the time being, and Bastion just seems, like I said, to be focused on the west side of Feythabolis for now. So there you go. So that's kind of what's going on in Feythabolis. And in terms of what's left in terms of legacy structures, extra large structures, we have 1 Test Keepstar, and we still have 1 Satio that it belongs to AARP, so I'm sure Deepwater Hooligans will be dropping a couple of supers on that at some point in the next week or 2. All right, and Feythabolis is a wrap. So now we can go on to Catch. So with Catch, I can now say that Catch is completely legacy free in terms of iHubs. So the the Warped Intentions system has finally been flipped. And if you remember, Severance kind of made an entrance into Catch from Querious a couple of weeks ago, and that has now been taken back by Dracarys. So yeah, it's now a completely legacy-free region. What is of note, though, is that Red Alliance used to hold this whole constellation here, and they no longer do so, and it looks like they've had an exchange, and French Connection seems to be setting themselves in. So French Connection only had one system at the time. I think they only had this one here, maybe one up here as well. And they've clearly expanded, taken that whole constellation, taken a couple of other systems. They are very closely tied with the Initiative, both the Initiative and FXR, French Connection being part of the Imperium. The Initiative are kind of doing putting quite a lot of structures down in U-Q, so it looks like they're getting quite settled there, and it looks like French Connection are doing the same. Now, in terms of structures that are left, there's still a lot of brave structures left behind. A lot of Fortizars, Asbels, Athanors, all kinds of things. So I'd expect a lot of those are going to be cleared out. There is still a Brave Keepstar left and 2 Brave Satios. So there's at least one of the Satios is in GE-8JV, which used to be the capital system of Brave. The Keepstar is still there. Pretty much everything is reinforced and in hull timer now as we speak on Monday the 12th of April. So I assume the Satio is going to die later on today, as well as a lot of the other structures in this region, in this system. But the Keepstar is still looking fine. I think it got refed once, but at the moment it looks it's in this invulnerable state. Now, in terms of what's left, so we have 1 Brave Keepstar, 2 Brave Satios, which will already be 1 Satio by tonight. There's also 4 Test Keepstars and 1 Test Satio still in a Catch. Now, in terms of stuff that has been killed off, obviously people have been focusing on those brave structures that I mentioned. We've had 3 faction Fortizars, so 2 Dracus and 1 Horizon. Horizon now being, I think, down to 98, so the numbers are ticking down. Inits were involved, and the Initiative were involved in all three of those Fortizar kills, with some Goonswarm members as well. And then I think Dreadbomb turned up for 1, and Against All Authorities, which is the dash A dash you see here, Against All Authorities being an independent alliance, which used to be part of Stainwagon Coalition, part of Stainroos, who primarily live in Stain and then try to move back into Catch whenever possible, but are generally kind of friendly at this moment to the Imperium, and generally been friendly on most of the time, but they do consider themselves independent. So, okay, I think that pretty much wraps it up for Catch. But yeah, so Legacy gone from Catch now, so that's kind of a big deal, because this was a big Legacy area back in the day. Can't believe I'm saying that, back in the day. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move to Esoteria. Not much to say in Esoteria. Obviously, we've had Army of Mango and Bastion kind of been toing and froing in terms of iHubs. It does look like AOM are starting to creep in more and more. And you can see up here that now AOM have started to take some systems. There's a couple of systems ref there as well. Obviously, Bastion are kind of focusing on moving into Feythabolis, as we saw from the previous map, into TR07, and then basically staging out of there and advancing into Feythabolis. So I think they're preferring that route and leaving Army of Mango here in Esoteria. In terms of Keepstars, still a lot of Legacy Keepstars here. There's still 4 Test Keepstars in Esoteria, and also there is an Army of Mango Keepstar that was dropped here just recently as Army of Mango moved into the area. All right, so that covers Esoteria. Before we move on to another region, I'm just going to say very quickly, if you enjoy my content, please give me a like, you give me a thumbs up, please hit subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, please leave me comments. I do try to reply to every single comment, try and engage as much as possible. Comments also help the YouTube algorithm, helps the channel grow, and also do mention me in Discord Corp, your Discord Alliance, all that kind of good stuff, and help get the word out there that I'm doing these more updates every week. And also I do an Alliance Spotlight on a Thursday. And I've got some good alliances lined up for the next few weeks as well, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy that. Okay, there you go, little break over, and we're now going to jump back to Querious. So let's go to Querious, and move my notes down a little bit. and go to Querious. Here we go. Right, so in Querious, not much going on really, except Keepstars are going down. So I mentioned these the other week. There was one in YQX, which was destroyed, and one in BTAX 7 down here. There we go. So both of those have now been destroyed. I think that's all of them now. I think there may be one left. I think there's one in BX. I can't quite remember. We'll have to check ZKilly in a minute. So that's pretty much it. I know that there was a bit of a panic in YQX, and there's quite a lot of kills going on in this pipe up here. Let me just redraw that. In this pipe going from YQX up to 3-D, as I think some of the people in this Keepstar weren't aware that it was in hull time and kind of had a bit of a mass panic run from there. But apart from that, it's been pretty quiet. So there was also one Goonswarm Sotillo and 2 Goonswarm Fortizars that died in Querious, but we're not seeing anywhere near the level of kind of Fortizar kills and Asbel kills that we saw like a few weeks ago. So that we're really seeing now a winding down of all these structure kills, as we're literally running out of structures, both in Imperium space and in Legacy space, or old Legacy space, should I say. Okay, so that's about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Fountain, because Fountain's been really interesting recently. So Fountain, here we go. Fountain has kind of become the new Ethereum Reach. So if you guys weren't aware, Ethereum Reach for quite a few years was kind of this melting pot of alliances. Just everybody just showed up from everywhere and just took like a few systems or a constellation. And it's now becoming very much like that with Fountain. So first up, we have Forsaken Empire have kind of extended their territory up here. I can see there's some stuff refed. I don't know what it is that's refed. I'm going to just double check that quickly. I should have checked that earlier. Okay, so for saying their actual iHubs are being reinforced. So that's interesting. So they did, I think they took these from Ranger Regiment. And so obviously Ranger Regiment are obviously trying to ref them back. And so there may be some SOV warfare going over there. There's Celestial Empire. So Celestial Empire just came out of nowhere. All of these systems were empty and just took them over. And then we have UF, whose name I've forgotten. So we're going to check. It's United something. United Fleet. There we go. And I think that both United Fleet and Celestial Empire are kind of refugees from Syndicate. Obviously, Syndicate's kind of a lot of battles going up there in Tribute and so forth with Fraternity. And I believe that they've moved down from there. If I'm wrong, please correct me. That's absolutely fine. Mention it in the comments. But yeah, that's what's going on. And then obviously Federation Uprising, we can see are now kind of starting to inch further into Fountain. So they're moving into there. And then we then have, and this is the really interesting stuff, we now have Stellar Renaissance. So I mentioned these guys last week and I didn't know anything about them. And now I've got all the story. So you can see they've taken quite a few systems around here. Now, I didn't understand what was going on because these guys were not part of the Imperium. They were not part of PAPI, but they seemed to be blue to PAPI. So I managed to get in touch with one of the Alliance leaders and I got the whole story. And essentially, Stellar Renaissance used to be part of Querious Fight Club. Now, Querious Fight Club used to be a group of alliances kind of under Imperium rule. So Imperium owned Querious, but they let alliances kind of be there and just fight between each other whilst being under the protection of the Imperium. And let's just say that a couple of years ago, there was a falling out and there was a parting of ways between SR, so Stellar Renaissance, and the Imperium, and Goonswarm in particular. And I'll let you look at Reddit if you want to see the goss and you want to see both sides of the stories. But the end result of this is that Stellar Renaissance decided they didn't really like the Imperium very much and started an aggression campaign in Querious. And they started just harassing as much as they could in Querious, basically stopping people from ratting and just kind of making life difficult to live in. Now, this was happening before PAPI kind of started their war against the Imperium. Then, as the PAPI forces were advancing towards Querious, Stellar Renaissance, which I really struggle saying, kind of built up a bit of a bond with Legacy, and there was a bit of sharing of intel. And then as Brave moved into Querious, there was a relationship there. And so what has now happened is the Stellar Renaissance are kind of seen as a true neutral. So they're not actually allied to the PAPI side, but they're on good terms, and they're on speaking terms, and they work stuff out together and get things done. And I asked about taking all this territory in Fountain, and basically the answer was, why not? From their point of view, the war is they see it as potentially coming to an end, and they decided they want themselves some territory. They no longer had that constellation in Querious, so they decided to go and take some territory in Fountain. So there you go. So that's kind of what's happening with Stellar and Esoteria. So really interesting, and there you go. Glad to be able to bring you some information on that. All right, so now we're going to come on to Delve. Of course, we always finish off with Delve. And Delve, it's really slowing down now in Delve. We're kind of building up to this hopefully this big battle that's going to be coming soon. So only one Keepstar died in Delve, 2 died in Querious, 1 in Delve, but that was in UEXO. All we have left now is we have some Keepstars up in this constellation that are ready to be reinforced, so their doom clock is out. And then we have, I think, 3 more structures left. So where the doom clock comes out in the next week or 2, I think there's PUIG and OTAC H. And I think there's the one, and then there's this one as well, in PS94, where it got flipped back and they had to flip it back again. So I think that's the very last one to go. And that's it. Then after that, all of the remaining Keepstars are in this constellation. So let me bring up a map. Let me bring up the road so far. I didn't bring it up last week. Okay, so there we go. So you can see all of the ones in red, all of the Keepstars, Imperium Keepstars that have been destroyed. The ones in yellow are the ones that are on doom clocks, and then the ones in green are the 11 Keepstars that are in that constellation I just drew a circle around in blue, of which 5 are in 1DQ. So if I run over these, we get all the little wobbly creatures come up and it all gets a bit insane. But the main thing is you can see, if I just grab my pen down here, oops, let me clear that out, there we go, in 1DQ, you've got these 5 Keepstars down the bottom, and then the other green ones are in the other areas within that constellation, the other systems within that constellation. So there you go. So that's pretty much what's going on with Delve right now. And so if we go to zkilly.app, you can see that now we are literally at 9 days, 12 hours before the last doom clock timer flips over. For those of you that have not been keeping up with my updates, the doom clock means that the iHub has been held for 35 days. If you hold an iHub for 35 days, you're able to put a Sino jammer in, which then stops Sino beacons and Sinos from being lit by putting in a Sino jammer, which means you can't then jump supercapitals in unless that Sino jammer is turned off. And so therefore, the owner of that Sino jammer gets control over what supercapitals can jump in and which ones can't by setting the time at which that happens. So there you go. So all about grid control there and having supercapital superiority on a Keepstar fight. And as you can see from that, we've now lost a little mushroom cloud. It's been replaced by a recycled, green little recycled logo. So good, always good to recycle. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to finish off with some news. So I talked about some smuggling going on. So this is a really strange affair. Now this is the group that used to, from Immensea, Northern Coalition, who used to be warping off, fleet warping Titans and Supers off the 1DQ Keepstar. They've been doing for the last few weeks basically some smuggling. So what they have done is they have been buying Goon Swarm Titans and Super Carriers and a couple of carriers in a Minakawa randomly, and then they've basically been handing them over to PAPI. So they've basically been buying supplies from the enemy and reinforcing their supercapital force. Now, this is 9 Titans and 30 super carriers, 2 Dreads and 1 Fax. And we also actually have all of the contracts here to actually confirm that this actually has been happening. So, you can put lots of spin on this however you want. The reality is that PAPI have been able to boost up their supercapital numbers in terms of ships available through the use of Imperium stock. You could then also say that the Imperium has made a profit from this, but then again, you have to take into account the number of Satios that have been lost, so the ability to produce supercapitals has been greatly reduced. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of spin on this. As always, I'm just reporting the facts. I made sure this was actually true and it had happened, and so I'm reporting on it. So there we go. Okay, now the last thing I need to report is Amma Marquis. So I've not really been talking about this because it's not a war I know very much about. But basically there is a big war going on right now between Rekking Crew and Snuffed Out in Lowsec, in Minmatar Lowsec. And there was a fight that happened on a Keepstar grid. And essentially Rekking Crew lost 7 Titans versus 1 loss to Snuff. Essentially from what I could see, I don't have all the details, but Snuff managed to get an overwhelming Supercapital and Capital presence. They had a ton of carriers. As well as more Supercapitals, Titans. And you can see, I mean, loads and loads of super carriers, loads of dreads. So they basically outnumbered them in Supercapitals in a big, big way. And then we can go down. Eventually, you'll see there's loads of carriers as well. And then right down the bottom here, this was the thing I found really incredible, was Snuffed Out actually brought 50 heavy interdiction cruisers to this fight. I've never ever seen 50 Hicks in a fight before, so they were making sure that these Titans were not going anywhere. So there you go. So in the end result of this was 1 trillion ISK was lost in this fight that happened last Tuesday, and out of that 1 trillion, 840 went to losses were to Rekking Crew, and then 212 billion were to Snuffed Out. All right, so that's about it. The last thing I want to show you is just a little graphic. I thought this was really cute, really nice. Deepwater Hooligans again. This is their jump bridge map. I'm not giving anything away that's anything upset here. They actually posted this on Twitter. But I just like the fact that they did it as kind of, you know, in the theme of their pirate theme. So they made it as an old school map. This is done with of Sound Mind as well, with whom they're affiliated. And you can see they've got deep waters for their supercut jump range, they've got shallows for their capital jump range, and they've put those on the map as well as their jump gates. So yeah, that was pretty cool, and that seemed like a good way to end things. So there you go, that brings you up to date on everything that's been happening so far. And so talking about those Keepstars, just to give you a summary, there's still 19 Legacy Keepstars in old Legacy space, and Legacy also have 3 Keepstars in Stain and 1 in Curse, and we will see what happens with those. All right, so time to finish off and say please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications. Please mention, talk in the comments, mention me in your Discord, in Corp and Alliance, and I will see you on the next one, and hopefully you'll watch the Alliance Spotlight as well. All right, that's all from me. Bye for now.